So a very good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to another video. Welcome back to Flabmorough. It's been a while since we've been here, and it's certainly been a while since we've had any cloud in the sky for a sunrise. You see, I've been away for a couple of weeks because, well, we kind of went from grey overcast skies constantly to bright blue skies constantly, and they're both as bad as each other. Today is the first morning for about 2 weeks where we're going to get a little bit of cloud in the sky for some interest for some photographs. So let's get stuck in and see what we can do from Flabmorough Head this morning. So we're actually still about 45 minutes away from sunrise, and I kind of want to get this one with the blue bow. Obviously you've got all the colour just starting to appear in the sky, but I found for these long exposure seascapes, the best time of day is actually to do this before the sun rises. You know, as you're getting all this like soft colour. When you do it when the sun rises, everything gets a little bit harsh, everything gets a little bit too saturated and contrasted for my liking. It's just my taste. So I'm going to take this photograph now before the sun rises, and my plan is just to take another couple of photographs that I've taken at other times of the day without any colour in the sky and just see how they turn out. So let's take this first photograph. I'll talk you through the composition, talk you through some settings, and I'll show you the final image. Alright, so how I have this composed on my other camera is very similar to how this is composed right now. So we have these cliffs in the background coming off, and they're all kind of pointing towards this colour over in this direction. We have this other cliff face here doing the same thing, so it's pointing out and it's facing towards the colour in this direction, because that's where I want you to lead your eyes. So all the colour in the sky down there. And then just off behind this camera, there's just another little bit of an area of cliff. It's just kind of framing and filling in this area of the frame, just so it's not empty space and blank space. So everything is kind of leading the eye towards this direction. So let's have a look at the back of the camera and I'll talk you through some settings. Alright, so here's the composition lined up on the back of the camera. So as you can see, as I said earlier on, we've got these cliffs coming in from the left hand side pointing towards the colour. These other cliffs pointing towards the colour, and again the other cliffs in the bottom corner just framing everything nicely. So we're at 15 seconds, f11, ISO 200. And as you can see, same with 2 stops overexposed. That's okay, we're not losing any of the highlights in the sky. It's going to enable us to give a little bit of shadow detail on the cliffs here. Obviously the sun's not up yet, so you're not really going to get any light shining on the cliffs. So overexposing it slightly just allows us to get a little bit of detail in the shadow. So let's go ahead, 2-second timer, and off we go.
Come closer, dance for me. Easy tiger, easy, let your hair down. Come closer, let me see.
So we're already at that time of day. It's just bright enough, and we're not getting the long exposure look without filters. So I'm currently trying to screw a filter holder on. So here we go. I'm going to start with a 3-stop filter, I think. It's not quite bright enough yet, but we're just getting down to about 2.5 seconds, which isn't really long enough for the look I like for long exposure. So we're going to throw a 3-stop filter on. Hopefully that's going to give us that look that we're going for. We're focusing this time on just the stack that was coming out from the left hand side of the image. I quite like that as its own. So we're going to focus on that one. We're going to try and curve it around a little bit, get some of the other cliffs in as well, but we're really predominantly focusing on the stack from the last image. Alright, so the 3-stop ND filter wasn't quite strong enough, so we've stuck the 6-stop on and we're getting around 40 seconds of exposure time at f10, which is more the look I'm going for. I really like to flatten out the sea. This colour is really sort of turning into like a pastel sort of sky. It's really quite cool looking. I was expecting it to, you know, that thing where it turns a bright orange and really fiery, but it's actually staying quite pastel, and the cloud is kind of just limited to the horizon, so there's a lot of blue sky around it as well. There's no wind today, so the cloud's not in any real hurry to disappear, which is just allowing me to calm it down just a little bit. One of the problems I tend to have with this kind of photography in the morning is sometimes the conditions don't stay how you're expecting them to stay for very long, and you kind of rush around a little bit. But today it's quite chilled out, there's no winds, the cloud's not going anywhere. The only challenge is, as per usual at this time of the morning, is the light changes very, very quickly. 5 minutes can mean a stop in difference at this time of day, so you really have to sort of dial your settings and take the photograph when you want it. So let's go ahead, we'll look at the composition on the camera again, I'll talk you through the settings, and then we'll take the photograph. It's looking like a really nice morning this morning. Okay, so as before, I'm going to walk you through the composition a little bit on the back of the camera. So all of this blue area down here, obviously the camera right now is not using the exposure sim, so it's just telling me that everything under there is underexposed, but all of that part there, all of the blue, that's all cliff faces. Some nice greenery in there, there's some nice little white flowers as well. It looks quite nice when you actually take the exposure properly. This area here is the cliff just coming out into the sea, and again we're just pointing towards all of that nice pastel colour in the sky. You'll be able to see it around. It's obviously, you can see it on the video behind everything, but it does look really quite nice. So 40 seconds, f10, ISO 200. Here we go, the 2-second timer. So I've moved round now, I've moved round the headland a little bit. Now I was going to go take a photograph of a rock formation that's called the Drinking Dinosaur, but none of the colour, none of the action was kind of happening over there. You'll be able to see above my head up there, it's very, very blue sky, and that's kind of the direction that rock formation's facing. So I thought we'd leave that, there's no point, there's no colour over there. And I thought we found something new, so we're facing towards the sunrise again. There's like a little bird watching station with a radio mast and a that's like water pumping building or something. I kind of thought they made like a fun little subject just perched on the cliff top, slightly wider angle, getting the cliff curving round, getting the sunrise behind it, and again we're flattening all the water out with a 6-stop ND filter for the long exposure look. So I'm going to show you that photograph in just a second, but I want to talk to you for a few minutes about the whole point of this morning's video. So I've spent the last several years dabbling with different kinds of photography. So we've done street photography, we've tried wildlife photography, we've tried macro photography, and just recently we went around the city centre with an infrared filter screwed to the front of my lens, and this is how that little expedition turned out. But none of those types of photography have got me exciting. I don't enjoy them as much as I do this sunrise coastal long exposure photography, and that's kind of what I lean towards when I come out and make these videos and come out and take my photography, and it's very difficult for me to shy away from that. There's something very deeply ingrained in me. It's about coming to the coast for sunrise, so I can't really go to the coast for sunset because I live on the east coast. Sunset would be a little bit impractical, but you get what I'm saying. So the whole point of this video is to identify who you are as a photographer, or try and figure that out. You see, I've been toying with different kinds of photography, like I've already said, on and off for a couple of years, but the one that really stuck, the one that really landed, was the one that I geared myself up for when I first picked up a camera, and that's why I gravitate towards this. And I'm kind of thinking of whether or not to throw myself into that genre of photography. I think it's my strong point when it comes to taking photographs, the street, the wildlife, the macro stuff. I don't mind it, I enjoy all kinds of photography, but the one that I feel like I'm the best at is this coastal long exposure stuff. And it's one of them things, once I've got comfortable with that idea, when I come out and take photographs, I enjoy the process, figuring it out, working out the compositions, working out the settings. I enjoy the whole process around that genre of photography, and it can't be said for other types that I've tried, which is sad really, but I've kind of pigeonholed myself at this point as to coastal stuff, sunrises, long exposures. A little bit like I said earlier on in the video, one of the reasons why I've not uploaded for a couple of weeks is because there's no point coming out when there is no light for this kind of stuff. It just looks flat and miserable, and I'm not too keen on the whole black and white long exposure look. It's not for me. Other people like it, that's fine, but it's just not for me. So the whole idea of coming out on an overcast morning when there's no light around, well, it kind of makes it a little bit disappointing. And like I said earlier on, the same can be said when the skies are clear and blue. Again, the skies, there's no interest in there, and for me, a long exposure, you need a subject, you need to flatten the water out, and you need some colour in the sky, and that's hopefully what we've got this morning. So here's my little rant over with, and here's a photograph of the bird watching station with the radio mast and all the long exposure goodness behind it. Alright, so I've done it. I've done the cliche one. We've come down to the Drinking Dinosaur. I wasn't going to do this originally, like I said a little bit earlier on, but well, the tide's in the right place, and there is a little bit of pastel colour in the sky. But the key thing for this one, the sun has just broken the horizon. Now, where the sun rises in the east here, it tends to light up the side of the cliff face along here. We've had that before when we've taken this photograph, and I quite like the way that looks. So hoping maybe give it 10-15 minutes, maybe some of the cloud will stick around, make it quite nice. But the whole idea here with this one is the golden light is going to light up the side of these cliff faces. So let's hang around, see what happens, hopefully get a rather nice photograph. So here we are, you're joining me 10 minutes later now. I took a time lapse just to show you how the sun rises and lights up the side of the cliffs. What I've done is I've put a 10-stop filter on now. We're also using a polarizer just so we can see through some of the water, just to see some of the texture below it, and we're also using the remote shutter. What I've done is I've thrown the camera into live bulb mode. Now, if you're not familiar with Olympus cameras, Live bulb mode will give you an exposure preview on the back of the camera as the picture's been taken. So I've got it set to update every 15 seconds. And that's just going to allow me just to stop the photograph when I think it looks right rather than the camera deciding all that for me and messing around using different exposure lengths. I thought we'll just throw it into live bulb mode, take one photograph and try and nail the exposure first time. So let me show you the back of the camera and I'll show you what's going on. So this is what you see on the back of the camera during live bulb mode. Now you can see down there it says display count 14 of 24 and it also has the current bulb mode timer down there. So that's displaying 14 of 24 different previews. I'm also getting a histogram down there so I can see I'm going to stop the exposure just before it starts to clip any of the highlights. So we're currently at 3 minutes and 45 seconds, the 15th update is given and the histogram still hasn't quite clipped yet. So this is how I do long exposures using the live bulb mode on my Olympus EM1 Mark II. Well, long exposure time has, well, it's come and gone now. The sun's a little bit too high in the sky for the kind of photography that I enjoy, so it's just a case of enjoying the location now. It's quite a pleasant morning, the sun's come up, it's warmed up a little bit, it's a nice place to be this time of year, so I think I'm just going to hang around and just enjoy the time of day and just enjoy the peace and quiet. So thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's video, please do give it a thumbs up because it really does help the video and it brings new viewers to see my content. And if you enjoyed it a little bit more than that, you can always press the subscribe button, which is somewhere down there near the C, I think. So yeah, until next time, I'll love you and leave you and say peace and goodbye. Oh God, that was in focus.